Good afternoon, everyone. Today, allow us to discuss the basic network concepts, part 2, the whole social networks. So, in our previous discussion, the basic network concepts were already introduced, such as the nodes and the relations between the pairs of triads and dyads, right? And as we discuss these different individual member of networks, it is important for us to know also the whole or the entire social network, meaning to say it lies into the consideration of the whole social networks. Let's say, for example, in a sociogram. In a sociogram with more than 10 nudes, you can really say that you can observe a lot by watching. So in this topic, we will discuss what are the different concepts related to the whole social networks and what are the importance of these concepts. So first we have the distribution. So when we say distribution in an entire network, meaning to say it is the key distributors that includes the number of dyads and triads in an entire network. So it includes all the numbers of item involved. So when we say dyad, it consists of 2 items, and triads, it consists of 3 items. So meaning to say in distribution, you conclude how many people, how many items are there in an entire network. So next we have the dyads and triads. Again, when we say dyads, it consists of 2 items. And when we say triads, it consists of 3 items. So if you were to look at the sociogram, it is a dyads, a combination of both dyads and triads, in which it is symmetric, meaning to say the idea here is that if I am your friend, then you are my friend. Or if you are my friend, then I am your friend. So that is as an example of symmetric dyad and triads. There is an equal opportunity for both items. And in writing or in doing this kind of dyads and triads, it is important for us to know that it cannot be done using our hands. But instead, there is a technology used, or you can do it online, in order for you to make the dyads and triad connection symmetrical to each other. Next is we have density. Density, it is the heart of the community, social support, and high visibility. So, in order to compute the density, you have to compute the direct actual connections and divided to the possible actual connections. So when we say density, it is how dense the population of an entire network. Gaano ba kadami ang naninirahan sa network na ito? Gaano ba kadami ang nakikisalamuha sa network na ito? So that's density. How dense the population of the network. Next we have structural holes. So if you were to look at the sociogram, you can see that there are 2 clusters. First, we have the cluster 5, 6, 7, and the other one is the cluster 2, 3, and 4. So when we say density, it is the lack of connection. So if you were to look at that 2 clusters, you can say that they are both connected with each other, right? But what connects them is the ego. Meaning to say, if there are no ego, there are no connection at all. So that's structural whole. What makes the 2 cluster, what makes the 2 dyads and triads, what makes the 2 items connected with each other. If there are no connections, if there is a lack of connection, or for example, in that case, if there is no ego, then there is a lack of connection. So that's structural whole.
So the next one is weak ties. So like structural holes, weak ties are also focuses on holes in the network. So it refers to the connection or relationship between individuals that are very close or intimate. So these are a very low level of emotional intensity, time spent together, um, and frequency interaction. So they are usually acquaintances rather than close friends or family member. So for example, weak ties can be seen in a professional networking context. So let's say me is a software engineer looking for a new job. So ako has a strong ties with my current coworkers, whom I see and interact with on a daily basis. However, weak ties could be acquaintances that I met at the conferences, networking event, or a friends of friends in the same industry, but with whom I has less frequent contact. So the next one is strength of weak ties. So hypothesis that important thing flow from people with whom one can limited connection. So the strength of weak ties hypothesis suggests that valuable information and opportunities came from individuals with whom one has limited connection. So for example, um, let's say I'm looking for a new job in a specific field. So my close friend and my family, who are part of my strong ties, may already know about the job opportunities within their immediate circle. So, however, it is true, um, my weak ties, such as acquaintances or a former colleague, that that I may learn about job openings, other companies or industries that I would not have discovered otherwise. So this week ties serve as bridge to my opportunities and expand my network beyond my immediate social circles. The next one is interesting consequences of weak ties. Number one, weak ties facilitated the flow of information from um, otherwise distant part of a network. So, like what I said kanina, ako who work in the tech industry and well connected with a professional in that field. So, however, I may not directly to many people in the tech industry. So, yung connection ko is can be considered weak ties for you. So, then one day, ako, inintroduce kita to another person whom work on the prominent tech company through this weak ties. You now have access to the information, opportunities, and resources that were previously distant from your network. So that another person whom work at a prominent tech company can provide insight, industry updates, and potential job leads, and all thanks to the weak ties connection facilitated by me. So number two, weak ties help to integrate social systems. So for example, imagine a small town with distinct social groups, the local farmer, the artist, and the business owner. So each group has a strong ties within their own community, but there is a limited interaction between the groups. So now, let's say there is a community event organized by neutral organization that brings all these groups together. Yung farmers, the artists, and the business owners. So during the event, individuals from different social groups interact um, and form weak ties. So these weak ties act as a bridge between the social groups, allowing for the exchange of ideas, collaboration, and integration for the different uh, social system. So the weak ties help break down barriers, foster understanding, and create a more cohesive and integrated community. The next one is various complication to the analysis of weak ties. So number one, the definition of what constitute a weak tie or a relationship can be critical, somewhat slippery. So it is the length of time one knows someone else. So ito yung gaano mo kahaba nakilala ang isang tao. So the frequency of interaction, meaning to say how often individuals engage or communicate with each other. The subjective closeness one feels. So pag sinabi nating subjective closeness, ito yung personal perception of being emotionally of intimate uh, with someone. Number two, it is important to understand the critical function of weak ties is one of the bridge between network segment. So, syempre 'di ba? Importante naman talagang maintindihan natin yung critical function ng weak ties. Yun nga yung one of bridge between network segment. Number three, it must be the case that something flows through this bridge. They actually serve a conduit bearing information and influence to the group they otherwise would not get. And whatever it is that flows actually play some important role in the social life of individuals, group, and societies.
Popularity and centrality are concepts used to evaluate the importance or influence of nodes in a network. Popularity measures the number of connections a node has, while centrality measures the overall control or position of a node in the flow of information or resources within a network. Different centrality measures, such as degree centrality, betweenness centrality, and closeness centrality, provide different perspective on a node's importance. In summary, popularity focuses on the quantity of questions, while centrality examines the significance of a node in a network. Distance refers to the physical or conceptual separation between two points or objects. It is a measurement of the space or difference that exists between them. Distance can be measured in terms of physical distance, such as the length between two locations, or it can be measured in terms of conceptual or abstract differences, such as the dissimilarity between two ideas. In the context of networks, distance often refers to the shortest path or number of steps required to go from one node to another. In a social network, for example, the distance between two individuals can be measured by the number of connections or friends in between them. The concept of distance is also used in various networks analysis techniques, such as calculating the average path length or diameter of a network, which provide insights into the overall connectivity and efficiency of information flow within a network. Overall, distance is a measure of a separation of or difference between two points or sub-objects, whether in whether in is in terms of physical space or conceptual dissimilarity.
Size of interpersonal environment. So, in general, as we will see in classic village societies, everyone knows everyone else. So, the number of steps from one person to any other is minimal. Village societies are also relatively small and confined so that the first order zone may be no more than about 500 local persons. So, Vosivane, 1974, thus limiting the number of persons who can be directly reached. So, in contemporary urban societies, professional and middle class people have a larger first order zone than blue collar and lower class people. Kudushin and Jones, 1992, on the other hand, in these societies there may be serious barriers across class and ethnic lines, making for greater distances between person in different classes and ethnicities. Wellman, 1999, the issue is a complex one and will be taken up later. Small word, the number of nodes in an interpersonal environment is related to the key concept of small word, which describe the relatively small distances that link a given node to all the nodes in a given network. So, the allied 6 degrees of separation does not, however, take account variation in people's skills at making connection. In Milgram's original experiment, most people were not able or were unwilling to make the requested connection. A recent experiment using the internet found that few of the JAs were actually completed and concluded that although in principle people were connected, the actual successes depended on their motivations and incentives. So there implies a high degree of interconnectedness and the ability to reach distant nodes should a relative small number of intermediaries. So, however, the effectiveness of this connection depends on individuals' skills at making connection and their willingness to do so. So Stanley Milgram's original experiment, which inspired the 6 degrees of separation idea, revealed that not everyone was successful in making the requested connection.
We come now to the multiplexity. Multiplexity means multiple connections or having more than one type of relationship or social connections between two actors. For example, an employees may have friendship relationship with colleagues, and at the same time, their companies may also have some form of alliances. It can also relate to the concept of homophily, which is the tendency to form social connections with people who share the same characteristics like age, gender, ethnicities, socioeconomic status, or personal beliefs. Multiplexity has two related senses in network literature. The first is the role multiplexity. This refers to the possibility that two nodes occupy more than one position that ties them together. So the nodes here refers to the people and the links refers to the social connections between them. It may be friendship, marital or family ties or financial ties. For example, the relationship between the supervisor and the assistant, and the linkages between them are the organizational relationship and at the same time friendship. It usually occurs in the village societies, which people are simultaneously kin, workers on the same farm, or members of the same religious groups. In non-village societies naman, roles may become bundled in different way because of the role sets. Role sets refers to the set of relationship that follows because one occupies a given role or the status. For example, the status of a school teacher. It follows a set of relationship between students, teachers, school administrators, parents, board of education, and so on. The second related senses of multiplexity is the content multiplexity. This refers naman to possibility that as a result of having a given role relationship, there are number of different flows or ideas between a pair of persons. For example, the coworker and the relationship, the advice, friendship, and work on common tasks. So the attention here is directed to the different consequences of multiple flows, or how they link or conflict under different circumstances. For example, the status of a coworker and the result is advice. The linkages of this result are solution to a problem, reformulation of the problem, and information about solutions to a problem. The concept of multiplexity has important place in sociological theory. The first is it can arguably important indicator of the presence of folk or village society forms of organization and even rural-urban difference. The second is it has an important role in developing a set of ideas about economic forms. It can be shown in the budget that over two centuries in Florence, Italy, which is the birthplace of financial capitalism, commercial banking firms were formed in four distinct phases. The first is basis of family and patronage, two bases of guilds, which is the association or union, three bases of social class, four bases of patronage. So the range that access and trust are available to support economic relations is a consequence of multiple relationships of different types. The third is the consequences of formal and informal modes of relations within organizations hinges or depend on how these multiplex relations are construed or interpreted in different settings.
Role and position. A concept that is not distributional but invokes how nodes relate to other nodes in the network. So dito may ugnay yung relasyon ng isang node sa isa pang node. So in interpersonal environment, there are basically two kinds of relationship. So first, ito yung very specific names na typically kinship tulad ng mother, father, children, aunts, uncles, and cousin. Yung itong relationship na to are typically asymmetric or hindi sila magkasintulad. The next is, second, is relationship that are more generically named. Ito yung naman yung friend, neighbor, acquaintance, or coworker are more typically symmetric. So itong naman, yung friend or kaya yung neighbor is yung may pagka similarity. Next is name, position, and relationship. So, tulad ng alam natin, ang network ay palaging may kasamang hindi bababa sa dalawang node o position at isang relasyon sa pagitan nila. Minsan maaring nakakalito yung concept ng role ay kadalasang ginagamit sa kapwa para sa posisyon, gayon din para sa relasyon sa pagitan ng posisyon. So dito naman like yung lalo na yung relasyon sa pagkamag-anak tulad ng ama ay karaniwang tumutukoy hindi lamang sa kahulugan ng posisyon kundi pati na rin sa nilalaman ng relasyon. Iyon ay ang obligasyon sa isa't isa at inaasang pag-uugali ng ama sa ibang pinangalanang mga posisyon tulad ng anak.
So, informal position and relationship, this is typically referred to a role or connection that is not defined by formal structures or official titles. It implies interaction or associations that exist outside of traditional organizational hierarchies or official designations. These informal positions and relationships often rely on personal connections, trust, and shared understanding rather than established rates or protocols. The informal relations and hierarchies. Informal relation encompass the unofficial social connection within a group, while hierarchies represent the formal structure of authority and responsibility. Both aspects contribute to the dynamics of an organization or social setting.
Embeddedness of the informal within institute or name networks. All enacted relationships or networks are embedded within formal arrangement. Embeddedness means a number of different things to different student networks. All agree, however, that networks are influenced by the related to cultural and social structural frameworks, and the converse hold true as well. Information and ideas are affected not only by relations between pairs but also responsive to being part of dense networks that amplify and transmit the ideas and the information. So, when we say embeddedness of informal institution or name networks, it is refers to their integration within a social or organizational context. These networks often exist within broader social structures, such as communities or professional circles, and are interconnected with the formal institutions. The term emphasizes how these informal structures are deeply rooted and intertwined with the fabric of a society or organizations, influencing and being influenced by the formal system around them. This embeddedness can impact decision making, resource allocation, and the overall dynamics of the associated social or organizational environment. Observe rules. Anthropologists distinguish emic and ethic concepts. Emic ideas or those that insiders to a culture use, and ethic ideas or concepts are those that observers input to the culture or find useful in describing it. Unnamed position or rules are those that observers ascribe to a structure which may or may not be so described. And noted by the natives, network relation can be prescribed by values, organization, and institutions. Often, when relations are prescribed, they are given a name. Relational names are very important in predicting the form that networks take, but the prescribed relation are only part of the story. Since relationships are further elaborated or the base of the prescribed, under many conditions the elaboration become institute and prescribed and another round of elaboration begins. So when we say um, observe roles in anthropology, any concept refers to ideas within a culture or understood by its insiders, while ethic concepts ex- are those imposed by external observers when it comes to rules. Observers may attribute a name position or a structure, whether acknowledged by the people within the culture or not. Network relations within a culture are often shaped by values, organization, and institution. Prescribed relations when given names are crucial in predicting network forms, but they are only part of the story. Relationships are further developed based on these prescriptions, leading to a cycle of elaboration and institutionalization.